And I'm Nick.
What's up, man?
I'm not
Hi, guys.
adulting real well. Hey,
Oh, we
that
have a
is our
guest too.
guest. Okay. We're going to get to her in a minute because we're really excited about this one. Dan and I have been talking about this for a while, but so hold on one second. But Dan, I'm not adulting well this week. I don't feel like I'm being a good adult. Like I don't feel like I'm being productive. So this is the first productive thing I think I've done all week. So I'm glad to be here.
I'm very jealous. I have been adulting too hard this week. It's been like roll out of bed, work, and then make practical decisions, and then go back and do more work.
I don't want to make okay. Just so we're clear, I'm showering and I'm doing things, but I feel like I'm getting up, I'm showering, I'm sitting in front of my computer, I'm working. Like I'm not doing a bunch of the other stuff that needs to be done, kind of thing. So, like I said, working a ton, but not adulting well. So, so it's nice to talk to somebody else. You know, I mean, that's face to face, and see your shining face. How is Arizona?
Nice and toasty. It was about 80 degrees today with a nice cool breeze, so that didn't suck. Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah.
You can have that.
I went outside and I played with the tortoise that just is somehow wandering through the yard all day, which is kind of cool. That was a fun guest.
So you have a pet tortoise now?
Apparently. He just came with the house.
How does it feel like that?
He is very confused about the armored dog that won't play with him. So he just barks at it and then runs back and forth, very excited. He's just confused. It's my dog is very yappy, but that's okay.
I feel like Shauna could train him to ride it eventually. So I think that'll
I'm
work.
working on it. I'm working on it. I was a little worried it would bite him, but the tortoise doesn't seem to care. He's just like, just let me eat my grass. I don't care. He's just eating. It's great. I love it down here.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, so I got the new truck this week. I think a lot of people were surprised by the decision, as was I, because I wasn't shopping for that truck when I went and looked.
That I will tell you that it was a nice break from my day because I was having a stressful day, and then you're like, I got a truck, and I was like, cool, can't wait to see the new Raptor, and it was not a Raptor.
Yep. Well, as I posted on Avance, we'll do a shop talk episode, and I want to get to our guests. I'm not going to dig into this too deep, but it was a matter of finding the right tool for the job, and this one has some pretty good off-road chops to boot. So, but the 18,500 pound towing capacity will probably work out pretty well for hauling the R8 and the trailer around. So pretty happy about that. It makes my Raptor look tiny.
What exactly is it? There's a name longer than supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah, it's a GMC 2500 HD AT4X AEV edition.
Oh, something small. Okay.
Yeah, so it's factory 35s. It's an inch and a half taller than even the regular off-road package. Steel bumpers, winch ready bumper, beefed up recovery joints, the same they're magnetic ride shocks that are on the Colorado and all that. It's just a really, really beefed up version of that. It's got powered running boards that are also sliders, so those are really beefy. And then it's got all the trailering stuff I need too. It's got every trailering option of the Sun, so it's a lot. It's a big ass truck. It's a big diesel, but it's fun. I like driving it. It's funny because it's not any wider than the Raptor. It looks like it, but it's not because the Raptor is so wide.
It's longer though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's like over a foot. It's probably about 2 feet longer. Okay. So it's massive, but the interior is actually a little smaller because the Raptor had a huge interior. So there's definitely some trade-offs. But anyway, we'll get into that later. It's a great truck so far. We'll see. Carter Automotive tip of the week, though, comes from this. And I'm going to entitle this one, Have You Turned It Off and Turned It Back On Again? Because that was exactly the quote-unquote repair I did on my truck, which I already had to do. So there's a known issue with these when you set them up. If you don't restart the infotainment system, not the truck, the infotainment system, it will not show all the icons and everything else. It's like a weird software bug. Shocking, I know. But that said, I was looking this up, and I was kind of pulling my hair out until somebody mentioned it on a forum. Thank God forums still exist. And they said, hey, there's this weird issue on the display on the new Denali trucks. It's not just mine is the same infotainment as the Denali. And they said if you hold the hang up button on the steering wheel for 10 seconds, it will completely not reset, but restart from like a hard boot. When you turn off your vehicle, your infotainment goes into what's called a soft boot, like a sleep mode. And like a sleep mode in a laptop is what it's doing. It doesn't turn off the power completely. This is how you save like last known camera configuration or map settings or things like that. But if you do a full reset, it's like turning the computer all the way off and turning it all the way back on again. So you can do this two ways. You can find the trick. You can go online. There's lots of sources for finding how to reset your infotainment system from the inside the car, or you can remove the negative battery for 30 seconds. These will both do the same thing. That triggers a hard reset as well. Sometimes in some cars like Nissans, you have to pump the brakes 3 times. Like in my GTR, you take off the battery terminal and you hit the brakes 3 times and then it does it because it has an onboard like temporary battery, I guess,
storage, backup battery. Yeah.
some kind of capacitor or something. So some cars are like that. But that's it. As soon as I did that, all the infotainment worked great. A bunch of other features that were just not working were not set up because it got stuck kind of between demo mode and ownership mode. And then sure enough, all of a sudden my digital rearview mirror works and I've got all my camera angles at my fingertips. And yeah, so
we're going to get into that more on the next episode because I feel like that should be, I don't know, that should have worked from when you drove it off the lot, but okay.
Yeah, it should have. And yeah, I have yet to find a dealership experience. I mean, they were fine as far as most things, but they at this point, people are still in that turn and burn mode because a lot of people are buying cars that the dealership experience really is not great. That's why you should go see our friends at Carter because it is great, as Nick
not
can tell
high
you.
Touch like it should be. Yeah.
If people aren't walking you through things, there's you bought the truck, congratulations. I also was like, here's my deal. Tell me what I'll pay you this. Give me the truck. Don't give me any crap. And then they were like, okay, fine. So
fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the ideal customer for a dealership either because I have no patience for salesmen.
But
anyway,
just that you don't have patience for, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just that, nothing else.
Just that, yeah.
Anyway, it's not as fun as old cars where everything's pretty straightforward. And so, anyway, we should introduce our guest this week, who is, as Nick was saying, I think this is our youngest official guest on the show. So, Emy Kissick, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
It's great to be here, guys. I am 16 years old, so probably one of the youngest. I'm very happy to be here.
And Emy comes to us from Chrissy. How do you know Chrissy? Chrissy, you kind of came out of the blue. Like, I mean, now that we've gotten to know you a little bit through your Instagram, stuff like that, but how did you meet Chrissy?
I spent a lot of time at performance racing school at Pacific Raceways. And I showed up at the track one day ready to drive my Spec Miata, and Chrissy was there with Avance. And her little tent and their table with all the info about Avance, and I hadn't heard Avance previously. I'd seen your guys' magazine, but I didn't really realize it was a big of a car club in the Northwest as it was. And I ended up joining Avance that day, and I thought it was a super cool community to get to be a part of.
Well, very cool. It's people like you that make it great. I mean, obviously, you showed up with your Spec Miata. That was a great little tie-in there, too, because not a lot of 16-year-olds are showing up at, anywhere with a Spec Miata. And you're working on yours, and this isn't your only project car. A race car is always a project car, so I call every race car a project car. But, I mean, how did you, 16 years old and already really, really neck deep into this, how did you get started? And, where does your influence come from, your inspiration, I should say?
So I never came from a motorsports family, unlike a lot of younger racers in the Northwest and across the world. I never grew up in go-karts. I really didn't get into cars until I was 10 or 11 years old. But I had always grown up in a shop, and I've always been sort of mechanically inclined. I love taking stuff apart and breaking stuff, figuring out how to put it back together. That was always really fun for me, and then that led into working on cars. And I really wanted like a cool sports car when I was younger, and so my mom wouldn't let me get a Corvette because they're fiberglass, so I ended up getting a rusty Datsun, which is probably 10 times worse. And I got my first Datsun 280Z when I was 14 years old. And I saved up a lot of dog walking money to buy that car. And it was my first project, and I loved it. And I had to let that one go down the road because it was a rust bucket, as most Datsuns are. But after I got into working on cars and street cars, I, like most people do, eventually migrated to the track, and I got to do my first high performance driving day at Performance Racing School in their school cars. My mom got it for me as a Christmas present almost over a year ago now, last Christmas. And that was the first time I ever sat in a race car and drove on a racetrack. And then in the last year, like, how much I've been driving and how much I've been into it just skyrocketed. I've dove headfirst into it. And I don't have any regrets at all. Like, I love what I do, and I love working on my cars, and I love being in and under the car. A lot of times more under the car than in the car, but it's been a fun journey.
That's really cool. Most people, I think, especially your age, they don't. It's more of keys to freedom. That's what it was for me. Like I got into doing basic maintenance because I couldn't afford to take my car to have somebody else work on it. But for me, driving was about getting on the road and getting as far away from home as possible because I was in a really small town. And not a lot of people take the path you did, which is pretty cool. I didn't go to the track until much later in life. Motorcycles, but not cars. That was just like out of reach for me. So I'm glad to see that it was so approachable for you. Now you've been basically only at the track for about a year, but you're pretty serious about wanting to get your license and actually go race. Like you want to do this as a lifetime thing. Are you working with Proformance to make that happen? What's your path to getting into this as like a career?
So I am already an SCCA licensed driver. And some of the biggest news that I just heard is Conference is now going to let 16-year-olds race this year, which is super exciting because they got new insurance. And so I'll be racing for SCCA and Conference this year in the Spec Miata class. I do want to take my career to the professional level. I never really imagined a job I would fit well in other than this. Like, I love being in the car, and outside of the car, like, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, and there's a lot of networking and social media and the business aspect of racing, and I enjoy all of it. Like, I love talking to people. I love getting to know new people at the track and reaching out to sponsors and the marketing aspects of it. It's really fun, and I don't really know what my path's going to be like to professionally yet. I would love to get into an MX-5 Cup car or a Spec MX-5 car because Mazda has a great contingency program with younger racers and people who are just getting into the sport.
Dan, you are far more knowledgeable about this than most people we talk to by a lot margin.
I think she's more knowledgeable than us, Dan.
Oh, yeah. I
pretty much.
100% admit that. This is not my game anymore.
I was like, I'm learning.
Yeah.
She talks. So talk about, I want to go back a little bit because like I said, it is an unusual process for somebody who's 16 and especially female to get into racing and to be so mechanically inclined and things like that. And you said you kind of grew up in a shop. So you obviously did did your family have a shop?
My dad's always had a shop. He's into square body Chevys, so he's always had a pickup truck around that he's working on. And I don't think he ever expected that his only daughter, his only child, would ever get into mechanics or anything like that. But he was always including me and lent me the wrench, taught me how to turn a wrench, and I pick up pretty fast. I learned myself some things, and I think he was shocked with that I was so into it from a young age. And I'm really fortunate to have parents that have been really supportive of my career. And like when I started racing and started going to the track, my mom said, "This looks like fun. I want to do it too." And so my mom and I have Spec Miatas together now. We've got 2 of them.
That's awesome.
So we go
cool
to track
family
days together. Yeah.
I mean, Dad's got to be really proud too. Like, I mean, his only daughter and she's already racing. Like that's got to be a good talking point amongst the guys. I'm just saying, like I would be talking about that all the time if I was a dad.
I think he's happy, but most of the time he complains about losing his shop space to me.
Was your dad in that video you made about the new lift in the shop? Was that your dad that was in there?
Yes, that was my dad.
Great video about the fact.
Someday I'll get to use it.
Exactly. The fact that he got a new lift and there was all these people outside the window wanting to use the lift and he couldn't get his stuff on his lift. So
that
I was
my
going to
mom
ask you.
Outside the window.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh, okay. All right.
Nice.
She played the role very well. I was going to ask you how your mom took you going into racing, but if she's racing next to you, that makes a lot of sense. That's really cool. She can look over you that way too.
When I first got in the car, she was a little hesitant because what mom wants their kid to be obsessed with going fast and race cars? But now that we've really gotten into it, my parents and we've realized like what an amazing community it is. Like racers, like I really came into this expecting as a young girl. I really expected like sexism and that kind of thing to be a bigger issue than I don't think I've ever had someone discriminate against me other than my gender and my age. Like a lot of time people are surprised, but I've never had someone be malicious or mean to me at the track, and everyone's so nice and supportive. You show up to a race weekend and you break something, there's someone with that part in their trailer and they want to help you. And so it's been a really amazing space to learn and grow.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead, Dan.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I think the older generation sees that almost more but now like the generation that's coming in, we're just excited for more people to be at the track. Who cares what they are? And there's so many more women in motorsports, not just driving, but in motorsports in general and I think the Northwest in particular really fosters that because Dirtfish has the Women in Motorsports Summit, and you get to hear from all the drivers there. Josie does an awesome job with that, and it's Rhiannon Gelsomino, obviously Travis Pastrana's co-driver, is based out of Idaho, and she's up here a lot too at Dirtfish. And I mean, that's the rally community, but there's just a lot more women in motorsports now, and it's nice to see the shift that if people were like, and I say people our age because Nick and I are in our 40s, or would be the generation to say something stupid like that, they would probably get slapped down pretty hard by the rest of the community because they're like, what are you talking about, dude? Have you looked around? Like, those comments put you in the minority, not them. So I'm just glad to see your parents were so supportive because like you said, I'd be worried a little bit about, wanting to go fast, but going to the track is a totally different story. Controlled environment, you're going to be a way better driver on the street, hands down. And ego is going to come out a little bit on the street, I think. But at the same time, like, racing isn't that dangerous, at least not like, no, really, if you think about it, per injury compared to football, for high school football, like the injury list is way higher, like through the roof. And it's not just per capita, it's the type of injuries. It's way harder on your body. And so like, if you've got a proper cage, the proper gear, it's actually pretty safe place to be in a controlled environment. Street racing, not so much. But, for the track, like that's a great way to go. It's not cheap, but I don't know. I see my brother's kids and all their hobbies. I don't know if racing would be that much more expensive at this point for him.
I think there's less drugs in racing, less performance enhancing drugs in racing. So you're good.
That's true.
Yeah. Talk about how you chose the platform that you wanted to go into. How did you and your mom end up choosing the Mazda platform? Obviously, you're looking to maybe further your career with Mazda, and the Miata makes an incredible race car. So talk about that journey a little bit.
The Miata definitely does make an incredible race car, and that's why Spec Miata is, I think, the biggest SCCA class in America right now, single design class. It's a spec class, so Spec Miata. We have certain rules that we adhere to, basically to make sure that all the cars are the same. That makes it so that it's about the driver, not the car. And so making it about the driver, it makes it about skill. It makes it about who wants to work the hardest to win. And it's amazing because Mazda still supports these older cars. You can still have a Mazda Motorsports account and you can buy brand new parts for your Miata straight from Mazda. So it's accessible. It's one of the cheapest cars because it's a Miata. It's not expensive. It's not a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a Porsche Cup car. It's not one of those. It's grassroots racing. It's simple. It's easy to work on. There's so many reasons why Spec Miata is one of the biggest classes in America right now, and I personally chose it because of my coach, Will Schrader. He's located in Portland, and Will's been coaching me because he has a Miata. And I was connected with Will from Don Kitch at Performance, and he kind of took me under his wing and started coaching me, and he was like, hey, here's this car to buy. That's a great car. And it's just nice to have that support because when you're new to it, like I never came from a racing family, like I said. I had no clue what I was doing. And it was nice to have a mentor and someone who could tell me how to get into it and how to run your car and how to set it up and how to work on it. And then the Mazda contingency programs is super cool because Mazda supports all of their cars. They support the Spec Miata cars, the first generation cars. They support the Spec MX-5, which I think is the third generation Miatas. And then they support the newest Cup cars. And they actually run this event, which I am hoping to attend in November, called the Spec MX-5 Shootout event, which is primarily a youth or younger racing event. And you have to be accepted and invited to go. And then the winners of the event get scholarships to race Spec MX-5 straight from Mazda. So as a woman in motorsports and as a youth competitor, there's so many scholarships available directly from Mazda to fund you in this very expensive sport.
Sorry, my dog just had to chime in there. Yeah, that's really good to know. I don't think we've had people talk about that before. Like, I don't know what manufacturers. I know the Mazda spec class is huge. I knew that, but I don't know if people are aware of all the OEM manufacturer benefits to racing their brand. I believe Toyota has something in the 86 line. And then I think, I don't know if BMW still does, but I mean, besides outside of your free track day when you buy a really expensive car, there's not much known about the actual racing until you really start to ask around and get into it. And it's cool to hear that Mazda has done so much because, I mean, we always say Miata is always the answer. If you don't know, you just buy a Miata. And that's usually what we tell people too, because they're like, it's funny. Miatas are like Porsches. They live up to the hype. Like, you can have any Miata, you're going to have fun. It doesn't matter if it's an automatic, doesn't matter what year it is. They're just plain fun to drive, period. You'll just laugh driving a Miata in a good way. So street, track, whatever. So that's really
Those
cool.
of us that fit in them, yes, sure.
Yeah, we can squeeze you into one again.
No, it was not pretty. It's not pretty. So, I mean, obviously, you're out there, you're wrenching on your car too. Where have you learned that knowledge? Have you gone out and taken classes on that? Did you learn it from your dad? Is it just sort of like, Dan and I do, where we break something and we have to try to figure out how we fix it?
A lot of trial and error. It was kind of helpful for me to get into the mechanical sides of cars early before I got my race car. So with my experience from my first car, my Datsun 280Z, I kind of knew how to get an engine running, and I knew how it worked. I never really took any classes. I'm not a certified mechanic. I don't have any licenses to be a mechanic, but
We're YouTube certified.
Yeah, we're
I am
YouTube
YouTube certified.
There you go.
I watch a lot of Instagram and YouTube videos on how to fix my car.
Yep.
And then my coach Will has really helped me with that because he's been racing spec Miatas for 25 years, I think, as long as the spec Miatas have been around. And so I first learned how to change my transmission with him, and I've done 4 transmissions since then. Not all on my own car. I'm not a transmission killer, but
that was going to be my next question. But okay, go ahead.
Steep learning curve.
Yeah.
We've changed a few transmissions at the track in like 4 hours, so that's how easy it is to work on a Miata.
Yeah, that's one miss shift away. At least they're easy to swap.
I think the thing that made working on my car a lot easier recently is my hydraulic lift from Hydraulic Solutions.
They did my lift.
They're sponsoring me this season and making my racing season possible, which is super awesome. And there's so much preparation that goes into a race car, and I don't think I would have been able to do it without a car lift. Like, I put a new engine in my car this winter, and had my racing engine rebuilt and new transmissions, and just inspecting your car and making sure it's safe. There's a lot of bolts on a race car, and there's a lot of them that are probably loose. And it's good to know if they're loose before they fall out.
Yeah,
True.
that's really cool. I didn't know they had sponsored you. They did my lift in my shop. They're awesome to work with, and they're an Avance partner. So shout out to Hydraulic Solutions. They were great to work with. They come highly recommended from everyone in Avance. If you put us in Avance, who should you get a lift from? You're going to find about 100 people that they've done lifts for all over the place. So they're awesome. What mods have you done to prep your car for spec Miata? Like, I mean, from the beginning, like since you're under there, like which ones have you found the most valuable? I'm just really curious.
Modifications?
Yeah.
So since it's a spec class, the car I bought it as a race car. I didn't build my own race car. It's a lot easier to buy one than it is to build one, especially if you can find a decent one for a cheap price, like I did. I think the first thing I did was put a new radiator in my car because my old one was leaking, that came in with the car. So that was probably $300, I think. So new radiator. The car already came with Mazda Motorsports suspension by Penske. This is the most common suspension that you'll see in a spec Miata right now. Spec Miatas used to have Bilstein shocks, but they are no longer popular because you couldn't get enough camber in them, I think. And then Mazda also provides aftermarket sway bars for the car, the coilovers and the shocks. And then I think we changed out some of the control arms for later model Miata control arms on my NA Miata. My first gen has second gen control arms on it. just because they're a little bit stiffer and a little bit more durable. As far as the engine goes, the engine has to comply with like the specifications of the engine. So you can't bore it out and have a ton of horsepower, or port it on do ported heads. You can't do that on a spec engine. So it's really essential to find a good engine builder that can like get it as close to the much horsepower as you can get out of it while still being in the spec rules. We currently have a lack of engine builders in the Northwest right now because our main spec Miata engine builder retired. So my engine went to California with Mike Haig and Haig Motorsports and got rebuilt, which was super nice of Mike. He did a really nice job on it. Not sponsored, by the way, just like super nice dude. Does super great work if you have a Miata engine that needs building. And then safety-wise, the spec Miatas have a full roll cage, and most of them have full containment seats, aluminum, no composite seats in a real race car. And then the interior's just stripped. We don't have anything in there. We do have to make a weight minimum, and my weight minimum is 2275. And then if you have a older or newer car, it's 2290. You have to be a little bit heavier to make up for the 1.8 engine and the 1.6 engine difference.
Dang, you know your
I'm
stuff.
learning so much.
Yeah.
I spent
I'm
a lot
impressed.
of time working on my car.
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to talk
It's
about
so
your other car. Go ahead, Nick, before we move on.
No, I was taking that transition too. And I don't want to be stereotypical, but so many kids with their first car, they want it to be a Jetta, they want it to be a Subaru, something fun. You went for a 280Z, and I think now you have an 88 300ZX and a 280. And talk about that. How you go,
project,
of all cars, huh?
Yeah, the Z31 300 is special to me. That was one of the first Japanese sports cars. That was the first Japanese sports car I was ever in. And my uncle Ken had one, and he had a turbo, and he was really proud of it. And it was a really cool car at the time. I loved it. I was in as a little kid going to see my uncle in California. It was really cool to ride around in that thing. So yeah, how did you get into yours?
I love my Z31. It is my pride and joy. My Z31 we bought before we got into race cars. So when I was first really getting into cars, and my mom was too, once I got into cars, I kind of got my mom into it too, because it always helps to have your mom on board. And I had my 280Z before that, and I sold it, and then we got the Z31 after I sold the 280Z. And the 280Z came from Texas. It was an auction car on Bring a Trailer, and we kind of bought it like sight unseen. That there's pictures, but we were like, oh, I hope this is a good car, and it gets shipped to our house and dropped off. Yeah.
Cross your fingers, yeah.
And it shows up, and it's just this beautiful, pristine piece of artwork, like 70,000 original miles on it when we got it, and a lot of the collectors tell me to like keep it original, keep it low miles, and I'm gonna drive it until the wheels fall off it. I love that car. I think a car is made to be driven, and that's exactly what that car is for. And so it's still all original, still completely stock. It was a one owner car. The older gentleman that we bought it from is a total sweetheart and still keeps in touch with us about the car and checks to make sure the car's still okay. And it's a beautiful car, and I love driving it and taking it to car shows. It's definitely not a race car. It's a slug, I'll be honest. But it's never failed me. It's never left me stranded. Like, it's just a nice 80s classic car. And I think the Z31s are really underrated in that sense, where they're a cool 80s car, but not a lot of people know about them, and not a lot of people run that chassis for anything racing or drifting wise. So there's a lot of them out there that are still unmolested.
Yeah, the Z31 didn't, or should I say, hasn't yet quite received the, the popularity of the Z32. I think the Z32 is really what launched the 300ZX name. And it got tons of awards. It was the fastest Japanese car that came out at the time, at least in the turbo. And it was a cool car, but not a lot of them survived. I think there was a lot of they either rusted away or they were forgotten because they got so low when the 300 came out. But I remember that transition, and I was like I said, I always thought they were cool, just the classic wedge, and they still had kind of that, you could tell it was still that 260, 270, 280, 300. It was a real natural progression in that body style. It still carried over a lot of that, even though it was less wavy. But the 300 was, the Z32 was such a huge departure from that. So it's nice to see somebody appreciating them still, because I think they're going to have their time like all those cars do. I think people are going to start looking for those because there's not many of them around. And when you see a nice one, it still catches your eye just because you don't see them. So
part of me hopes that they don't, because I don't want the prices on them to skyrocket and parts prices, but the other part of me knows that they deserve it. So
well said.
It's a fun. Again, I'm just a little bit in awe on the fact of all the cars. That's what you picked. It's amazing. I think that's an amazing car to pick, and the lineage and how you've chosen your racing careers is really amazing. So, I mean, what are you doing outside of racing? Are you the normal, like, 16-year-old teenager kind of thing, or is racing life and life is racing kind of thing?
So there's the term student athlete, and then there's the term athlete student, and I am an athlete student. My racing is basically my life right now. I'm fortunate enough to go to an alternative school in my area, which is still a public school, so I don't pay for my education. It's free from the government. But I do half days. So my alternative school, since I do half days, I have the other half of my day to work on my cars or send sponsorship emails or talk to people for racing and do all of that business of racing stuff. And then I still get good grades. Straight A's are kind of an expectation in my household. My mom is actually a doctor, so she went to medical school, and she grew up primarily poor and going to food banks as a child, and so she worked her butt off to go to medical school and give me this life that she provides for me, which I'm so grateful for. And so the least I can do is be a good student and get straight A's. And then on top of that, I was always planning on going to college. I had this dream, like I wanted to go to Stanford, and then racing came into my life, and I've gotten so into my race cars. I'm going to take a gap year to just focus on my racing. And I do say that I am a normal high school student. Like a lot of people, if you saw me on the street without my car, you'd think, oh, that's just a normal 16-year-old girl. But racing is definitely life. And sometimes I think I do need a hobby that's not cars, because cars used to be like working on my car before I got the race car was like kind of like my hobby that I did when I didn't want to do homework. But now like cars is everything. So I think I'm going to try snowboarding or something, maybe golfing.
I don't think I've ever said the phrase, I think Stanford would be a cheaper option, but than racing cars. But no, snowboarding's dangerous. Be careful. Some of us were there when they were first starting that and are still, hurting in their bodies. But good luck with that. It's dangerous. Trust me. It's not. Snowboarding's not dangerous in the fact that you will have the skill set to do it. It's everybody else on the mountain. It's sort of like racing a car. You know where your space is. It's everybody else on the racetrack that makes the issue. So, yeah, I get that. That's amazing. I'm so impressed by you. All these questions, but talk a little bit about your car. I want to know a little bit more about your car, like the color. Why did you spec it the way you wanted to do it? Like what makes it your car?
The Miata, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, the Miata. Sorry,
Yeah.
The race car. Apologize.
So
Thank you for clarifying, Dan.
I know it's confusing. There's too many of them.
Yeah.
The Miata has a name. Her name is Lizzie. So Lizzie, my green Miata, is bright lime green. If you've ever seen like a Sunbelt Rental green, like the Sunbelt Rental Tools place, it is Sunbelt Rental green, or at least it originally was. The spray paint cans that came with the car when we bought it were Sunbelt Rental green. And I don't know why the previous owner chose to paint Lizzie Sunbelt Rental green, but Lizzie is bright lime green, and I honestly love it because there's not a lot of other green cars out there. There's a lot of red Miatas, there's a lot of white ones, there's some darker blacks and reds. I think there's a purple one, but bright green, it stands out at the track, and it looks great in photos, and I've always liked green. Green's always been one of my favorite colors, so it was kind of fitting for me to end up with a bright green car.
It's beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful car. So I assume, like, I was looking through your Instagram, the black and blue and yellow and pink one is, or purple one, is that your mom's car?
That is my mom's car. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mom's car's
That's a good looking car too.
Mom's car's name is Chuck.
Okay. Chuck and Lizzie. Okay.
Chuck is
I like
definitely
it.
a 10-footer from up close. Chuck came from the East Coast, so a little rusty in some spots. The wrap is covering up some nice little rust holes in her, but
Chuck has seen some things. Yeah, I get it.
for sure.
For sure. For sure. Very cool.
I actually ended up getting my car repainted this winter. I did the interior myself. I just repainted it flat black, and then the exterior got painted by a local body shop. And I'm getting it wrapped soon. And I contacted Mark at Mad Vinyl Works. Mad Vinyl Works is located at Pacific Raceways. Are they an Avant partner? I feel like they might be.
I was just going to go look that up.
I don't know. So. I don't know if they are. I've heard of them before.
Yeah, they're at Pacific, and Mark does an amazing job wrapping cars. His whole business is just vinyl wraps and race car liveries. And so I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, Mark, do you want full artistic freedom over my bright green Miata?" And he said, "Sure." And so this year I'm partnering with Mark at Mad Vinyl Works, and he's getting full artistic freedom over the Miata. So follow me at Emy Kissick on Instagram. It's 1M and a Y, so EMY.
We'll post the links too.
Perfect.
Well, and I was going to bring that up because I know your goal is to get over 1,000 followers, and you're at like 923 right now. So I think
close.
The listeners can definitely. We need like almost a little under 70 people to do that. So that'd be great. So yeah.
I know that the Avance community is cool people too. So.
What's the phrase? The boys have got me, or whatever it is, Dan?
What's that?
What's the phrase? The boys have got me, or whatever. Come on, Avance members, let's make this happen. So, yeah.
So, like, it's funny you said that. I was going to go back to you said about you should have a hobby outside of cars. I think all of my hobbies that I've tried sort of just end up revolving back to cars, or at least they become car inspired. They somehow turn into car related, no matter what it is. It's like, oh, I want to go travel more. I should road trip more. We should go out of the country and travel more. I should road trip in other countries more. It's like
I should go camping. I should go overlanding.
Yeah, exactly.
I decided to try art
hiking.
for a little while, and then I just ended up drawing cars all the time.
Right, exactly. Everything I do is like, yeah.
I go to the gym, but now I go to the gym because I want to be a good athlete in my car. I want to be a good race car driver, so I go to the gym.
No, Dan, we should use that excuse to go to the gym. That sounds like a good one.
We should, now that I have a gym.
Yes, yeah, I really should. And a lift.
And a lift, yeah.
And a lift. Nice. So tell us about the upcoming season. What's happening? Where are you racing? Because like I said, you're based out of Olympia, correct? In that area?
I am so excited for 2024 this season because last year was my first year in the car, first year's racing ever, and I was really just jumping through a lot of loops and learning everything about the car and how to work on it and learning how to drive, really. Like, I never did go-karts. I got my permit when I was 15, and so I barely had my driver's license. I actually had my racing license before I actually got my real driver's license. I was 15 when I did my racing class. And so learning to drive and learning how to work on my car and learning simulator racing has been super cool. But I think 2024 this year is really going to be the year where I put it all together. I'm hoping for some top 10, top 5 finishes in Spec Miata this year. Last year, I raced at Thunder Hill for the first time in California. And I got to say, that's my new favorite track. It's an awesome Miata track. It's kind of like the Ridge where it's super open and there's nothing to hit. But it's also like got a lot of elevation change. It's a long track. There's a ton of different track configurations, so it never gets boring. And it's in sunny California. Like, what's to hate about that?
Yeah, a little better for learning for racing for sure. A little more. It's interesting in the rain, but yeah, you probably get some better skills in the rain at first. But yeah.
I love driving in the rain. I really do. It's one of my favorite things. Like sometimes if it's like a little bit wet out, I'll just leave my slicks on anyways. I won't put my wet tires on because I just want to go out and slide around, learn some car control skills. It's super fun. And even like just I haven't gotten to race in the rain, but practice days in the rain, it's just so much fun. Like it's like you don't take it seriously. Like it's an excuse to like just miss your apexes, and it still works out because there's the less slippery for your apexes on the outside line or the rain line. But definitely don't like getting the inside of my car wet since I have no windows. So that's the one downside to driving in the rain.
Yeah. Nice. Well, what's next for you? And not in the season, but just in cars, in the sense that, and I don't mean what's next as in what are you going to buy next year. I mean, as you look at cars on the market now and what's out there, are there cars out there you're just dying to get behind the wheel of?
I love your guys' motto, drive everything, because truthfully, I would love to drive everything. I would love to. But race.
Oh, there's some things you don't want to drive. Trust me.
I'm not a truck person myself, so I don't like driving trucks.
Yet.
Yet.
I'll drive the tow rig. I can back up a trailer somewhat.
Just saying, there's truck racing series out there, so you never know.
The NASCAR trucks, yeah, those look
There you
pretty
go.
cool.
They don't have windows either. You're not going to like those.
Not in the rain.
Yeah.
Oval track would be fun to try. I've never done an oval track before. I would like to learn more about rally racing too. I did like a 1-day class at Dirtfish once. That was super fun. I actually wanted to get into rally racing before I started road racing, but Dirtfish wouldn't let me drive when I was 15, and Performance would, so that's how I got into road racing.
Oh, you hear that, Josie? Missed opportunity. Just put it out there. It's probably their insurance, honestly.
Yeah.
It was definitely their insurance. I totally understand that. Car-wise, driving though, there's so many things out there. I'd love to get into like an IMSA car, like an endurance car. Some of those really cool downforce cars would be awesome to drive. There's so much I haven't experienced yet in my short career in motorsports. So the future has a lot to hold, and I can't say specifically what I would see as my dream car because there's just too many choices.
Yeah, I'm always curious what's catching the kid's eye, like how out of touch am I, Nick? That kind of thing. So.
Well, you just used the phrase "what's catching the kids' eyes," so
I'm aware
you're
of
out of
where
touch.
I'm at and where they're at. Let's put it that way.
You're hip. You're cool. It's fine.
Yeah.
Rad.
You're rad. Oh, she drives 80s cars, so she uses 80s words.
That's right.
Like rad.
Has she seen the movie? That's the real one.
Yeah, there you go. That's your homework, is to see the movie Rad. That's Dan's right.
Oh, I haven't.
It's a bike movie.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's
I think
old.
that's an appropriate movie to tell a 16-year-old, right? Like I was
gonna say there's a bunch of swearing in it, but that's
okay.
about it.
Just making sure.
I'm pretty sure she's okay at 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a BMX bicycle movie with Lori Loughlin from Full House. Yeah. That Lori Loughlin. Yeah. So anyway,
back before she bought her kids into college.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you help your dad too with his square bodies? By the way, we'd love those. Those
yes.
are great trucks and stuff like that. Are you a big help with your dad? Like I feel like you should help your dad because you're taking his lift all the time.
I do help him. He's my number one pit crew right now.
Okay.
And having a race car is a full-time job, so we haven't really had a lot of time recently to work on the square bodies, but he has this little photo of me in the shop on the wall, and I'm probably like 5 or 6 years old in the photo, and I'm wearing a bright pink dress, and I'm washing the wheels of his truck. He wouldn't let me touch the paint, but he would let me wash the wheels, so I was washing the wheels of the truck, and it's his 1974 square body Chevy. It's a single cab, short bed, Cheyenne model.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful. It's the bright red orange color. And it's my grandpa bought it brand new in '74, so it's our family truck. And we've had it for forever. And I think that was one of my core memories growing up. Like my first time really being exposed to cars was helping Dad wash his truck. He's not really like his trucks, they're not projects, so they don't demand constant work like the race car does. The race car definitely does demand it. And my Z cars are frequently breaking, but the trucks, I grew up sitting in the front seat with him going to car shows and stuff, and so I do miss that. I think he doesn't like taking it out of the garage. That's for sure. It's his garage queen. It doesn't move a lot, but
Well, it doesn't sound like he has time being the pit crew for two race cars.
Yeah, no kidding.
Do you,
his wife
do
and
you
his
race
daughter.
against your Do you race against your mom?
So my mom did her first race last September at Pacific Raceways with me at the Pacific Raceways Invitational. And that was her first novice race ever, and we raced in the same class. She didn't want me to. She wanted to race in vintage class, and she wanted me to race in Spec Miata class because she didn't want to race next to me. She was afraid I'd hit her. She my loving mom gets worried about me when I'm on the track, and it can be distracting for her, but I'm really proud of her for facing her fears of racing with me, and we got on the track together, and she ended up having an amazing race.
I think that's such an awesome phrase, that she got over her fears of racing with you. I don't think I've ever heard that. Like, a parent going, I'm afraid to race next to you. I mean, there are times my parents are afraid to drive in a car with me, but let alone race with me. I don't think that would happen. So, yeah.
What a cool experience, though. I mean, to race and do this with your parents, like that's just a great bonding experience, man. Kind of a dream come true for a parent, I would think, to be able to do this with you. There's not a lot of sports or things you can do with your kids, like with your kids, unless you're, playing doubles tennis or something,
It's been a really amazing experience for my family, and I'm so grateful to be able to have it. I don't think there's anything better I could be doing with my life, and my parents get to do it with me, and it's fun. It's made us so much of a closer family, and I'm an only child, so I don't have any siblings, but my parents both work full time, so I don't get to see them that often. And so it's nice to get away at the weekends at the track and just hang out with my family. And my racing
That's
family, of
amazing.
course.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think everyone close to the track is a racing family too.
I was going to ask how, do you have friends outside of racing, or has it kind of become all consuming and that's your friends are at the track now with you?
I do have friends outside of racing. I have friends from school. And I definitely think that my friends from school don't always get as much attention as they deserve because I'm often spending a lot of time working on my cars. And if I'm not doing car stuff, I'm doing homework or something to do with cars. And I don't have a lot of free time to spend with my friends who aren't racing. And it's also tough because there's not a lot of kids my age in motorsports, at least in Spec Miata. I think there's one other kid who's under the age of 18. And I think he lives in Oregon. His name is Brennan. He's also on Instagram, Brennan Gregg. Super nice kid. And then there's one other girl who races cup cars, Madeline. Madeline, I don't remember her last name right now. She has an Instagram. It's Maddie14 Racing, I think. And so other than like the two other kids that I know, there's not any other kids my age in it. I think a lot of people are older guys that do it and use it to get away from their family. And so some of my school friends get put to the side, which I do feel bad about. I wish I could spend more time with my friends, but there's a lot of sacrifices that are made in trying to become a professional driver because it really is a full-time job. When I'm not doing podcasts or emailing people or driving on the simulator trying to get better, like I don't have any free time. And when I do, it's really my mental health free time where I just like sit and do nothing because I need it.
Yeah, decompress and not think about racing.
For sure.
That's some self-discipline. There's a lot going on as a teenager.
I don't know if I have that much self-discipline now, let alone when I was 16. I'm kind of in awe, to be honest.
Productivity is a mindset, and it's a hard mindset to learn, and it takes a lot of discipline to really be productive at your fullest. But I read a lot of those racing books that talk about achieving greatness, and Ross Bentley books, and the mental aspects of racing. And I really love reading those books because it kind of gives me like the will to keep going, and it's like other people have gone through this before, and like other people have made their dreams come true, and so it gives me like the feeling that I can do it too,
I was going to ask you, who do you look up to in racing? Like, who are your kind of your heroes or your your mentors, things like that.
I thought it was really cool earlier when you mentioned Rhiannon with Super Motorsports, Travis Pastrana's co-driver. So the first motorsports event I ever went to, I think it was in like 2021, when I first got my first V car. After that, I went to the Subaru or the Oregon rally at the Oregon Trail Rally at Portland.
Oregon Trail Rally, yeah.
Portland
Yeah.
International Racetrack. That was the first time I ever went to PIR. And they had like the test day there where the rally cars would run on the track and through the field. And they had Super Motorsports was there, and I looked up to them because I thought they were really cool. You know, they were the biggest tent with the cool blue cars and the yellow stars. And I walked up, and the rally drivers, they're all so nice. Like, they'll just come talk to you. And Travis Pastrana walks up to me and says, "Hi, like, nice to meet you." And I get to shake his hand, and he's like, "Do you want an autograph?" And I'm like, "No, I actually want your co-driver's autograph. I want Rhiannon's autograph."
Yes.
I really looked up to Rhiannon, and I thought it was so cool that she was like this woman in motorsports, and she was like the first girl in motorsports I ever really saw when I first got into cars, because I was always really into rally racing, and I thought that was really cool. I later found out that I don't like getting dirt all over my car, and I get dirty enough driving through the dirt at Thunder Hill.
Yeah, it doesn't like to be wet in the car and doesn't like to be dirt. Yeah, rally might not be your thing.
Yeah.
I'm a girl, I'll admit.
No, that's not a girl thing. That's a wanting to be warm thing.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
I met
I'm
Travis.
I'm a road racer to the heart now.
Nice. So I met Travis, man, this is going to date me a lot. Probably 22 years ago when Travis was riding Supercross and motocross. And to this day is the nicest guy I've ever met in motorsports. I've met him. I don't know Travis. I always clarify that. I'm not one of those people that says I know Travis. I've met Travis many times over the years, and I'm shocked at how consistently nice he is to everybody. The guy just loves what he does, loves his fans. And Rhiannon is the same way. They're a perfect pair. Like, she's awesome. We know her and Alex, her husband, pretty well.
I'm so glad
at this point.
she's back together with him, by the way, this year. So glad.
When I saw that Instagram post announcements, I was like, "Woohoo! I'm so excited to see them racing again."
They are so cool. She's a great mentor too about sponsorships and all that. She's talked a lot about that at the Women's Motorsports Summits, and when we've interviewed her, like how much work it is beyond the car. And she's like, a lot of people fail in motorsports because they don't know that part. They might be a great driver, a great co-driver, but because they don't know how to handle the business side and the media side, they never get a shot because they're like, the sponsors aren't saying, well, you're not giving the brand what we need to support you. And so she's a great person to talk to about that. If you had some good advice, and I would say for people your age or people getting into this, but you've got pretty much great advice across the board, we've noticed. So anybody getting into motorsports or just wanting to start out, do you have any advice for them or things you've learned? Or like, now that you've been doing this a year, you're like, man, I wish I would have done this from the beginning.
So if you're a kid, if you're young, if you want to be the next Max Verstappen, like you're 5 years old, go-karts are the way to go. Really, I really missed out because I don't have any racecraft experience because I never really did go-karts. I never raced them. And so that's the reason I'm really using a racing simulator to make up for that. By using my racing simulator, I'm learning racecraft on iRacing or Assetto Corsa and practicing every night virtually. But if you're young and you want to get into motorsports, you want to be a driver, go-karts is really the place to do it. If you're older and you want to get into motorsports and you haven't really driven yet, definitely try an HPDE, which is a high performance driving education day. I know Performance Racing School has been really great to me. And Don Kitch personally has been like a dad and really helped me get into motorsports and taught me the business side of it, and the networking and connection side. But Pro Drive in Portland, I've done their racing school too, and they're really awesome too. Pro Drive does a really nice job, as well as Performance does. I don't really know of any other real racing schools in the Northwest. There's tons of like just high performance driving days. There's Hooked on Driving, there's Turn 2. I know there's Audi Club and BMW Club, Porsche Club, like they all do driving days, and you don't have to have an Audi or Porsche or BMW to go to their club days and drive. Um, and then I don't know of any other ones, but I'm sure there's other ones out there. Just take your streetcar, take your Toyota Prius, take your Subaru Outback, take your pickup truck, like whatever you have, go and drive because they don't care. Like it's everyone there is learning, and most of the people there are newer to driving, high performance driving, and they just take their street cars and they go for laps on the track because it's fun. And so take whatever car you have and go have fun with it. Like just go learn and be like a sponge and absorb everything you can. And I definitely recommend doing that a few times before you really get a real race car because buying a race car is a commitment. I'll be honest. I really dove into that commitment head first. And so, like, the more experience you can get with that, driving in the car is super cool. If you can't afford to take a car or you don't have a car you want to drive on track, or you can't afford to pay for a track day, find a simulator. Like, I got my simulator, I think 3 to 4 months ago, and it's been literally my favorite purchase, other than my car lift from Hydraulic Solutions. My simulator has been my second favorite thing to have because it's almost real racing. It's like 99% there, racing wise, because the tracks, they're all 3D scanned. They're very realistic. I have a virtual reality headset, so like it goes over your face and like you can turn your head and you can look around you and you can see your virtual car and the virtual track. And that's been like the biggest thing for me to learn how to drive and keep up on your driving in the off season. And it really doesn't have to be that expensive. Like you can get a base model set up for a couple $1,000. Like if you want a decent base model setup. I was actually watching AIM Data. They had a webinar on sim driving and they did a price breakdown on what it's like to have a simulator and how to do AIM data on it, which was super cool.
Yeah, and I would say if you think $2,000 is a lot of money, racing probably isn't for you. Because that's a very small drop in the bucket. But it's nice to hear. We've preached this since day one on the show that a driving school or riding school or whatever there is, a school is the best money you can spend on a mod because it's going to make you a better driver than anybody out there who hasn't. Like that, it's always a humbling experience whenever you go to a driving school. My girlfriend is sort of like when she gets a new car, that's sort of her thing. Like she doesn't do it because she wants to go race. She does it because she wants to know her car as best as she possibly can. So she's waiting for some nicer weather to take her R8 to the track. But like she did that with her S3, she did that with her S5, she did that with her TT. She likes Audis, obviously. But like that's like get the car, do the driving school, and that's just because she wants to know the limits of her car. She wants to know how hard she can push it, and it gives her a ton of confidence on the road. It makes it more fun. We love driving together, so I don't mind being a passenger princess at all with her because she hauls ass. So
it's really a safety thing. Like even if you don't want to race, or even if you're just like a newer driver, like I was, like I got my first daily driver and it's a front wheel drive car, and I'd never driven front wheel drive car. I'd only ever driven my rear wheel drive Mazda and my Nissan. So taking that car to just like a fun track day where you get to go around some cones and do some sort of like autocross type things and just learning how your car behaves and how it responds when you have to swerve around a deer on the side of the road or a pedestrian that you don't see or like another car. There's so many idiots on the road nowadays. Like it's really a safety thing. The cool thing about Performance Racing School is they did a teen street survival day where they're teaching teenagers, and they give you a discount because you're a teenager. It's cheaper than a normal driving day. And they say, hey, teenagers, bring your cars or drive our cars. We're going to teach you how to actually drive because there's so much that driver's ed does not teach you.
Yep. So we have an internal driving group at Microsoft. I'm at Microsoft full time, and I send people talk all the time about their kids are starting to drive, and I'm like, this is the number one thing you should do, and everybody comes back thanking me for them recommending them to that. It's like that you got to go to Performance. This is not taking them to the track to go race. It's like this is going to make them way better drivers, and they're going to have fun doing it, which is really hard to do. So, and they all come back saying they love it. Like it was the best money they ever spent for their kids, and so yeah, just saying. Putting that out there.
Are you
again.
trying to say that watching red asphalt didn't make us really good drivers as kids?
Oh gosh. If you're have you even heard of that, Emy?
I have not.
Find it
Consider
on
yourself
YouTube.
lucky.
It's
Yeah,
hilarious.
don't find it on YouTube.
It's terrible. It's like
It's just,
the video they put out there to scare your kids into driving correctly.
Yeah.
I look back and just roll my eyes. It's terrible.
makes you not want to drive though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
In my driver's ed,
Emy-
they showed this like graphic video of like people in like texting and driving accidents. It was like there was one kid who cried.
modern
Like
version.
it was awful.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the modern version of Red Asphalt. They've just updated. It's probably been. I don't know if you could show it in driver's ed these days.
Probably not.
You probably couldn't. So
Yeah.
Emy, we want to thank you so much for taking time. I know this is your first podcast, right? You've never done one before, and you did amazing.
Yeah. I wish all of our guests were this prepared and great to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
glad-
Thanks to
We
the rest
really
of us. Just
thank you.
kidding.
I'm glad my talking points paid off.
Yeah, I mean, you came well prepared. We really appreciate you taking the time. We really look forward to following your career. And we'd love to check back in with you from time to time and hear how things are going.
Yeah.
I
Why don't
really
you?
appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, give us give it a year. I would love to hear just a follow up after your season on what you've done and what you've learned. I'd love to bring you back on the show to talk about that. I think it'd be great for the industry and for just our listeners in general. But like, it's good to show that like kids out there are doing this stuff and having fun. So
Yeah, the more publicity, the better for me, because it takes a village to become a professional driver, and it's a lot of networking and business and aspects and media of it, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here because it's more for me, you know? You guys get to have a cool podcast. I get to talk about myself driving. I really
Win-win all around.
appreciate that.
Well, you're more than welcome. So we look forward to talking to you in the future. For this episode of the Advanced Podcast, as always, I'm Nick.
And I'm Dan. And don't just get there. Enjoy the drive.